When my father called me a beggar in front of everyone, something inside me shattered, but it wasn't just my pride. It was the last thread holding my family together. That line plays over and over in my mind whenever I think back to that night. The banquet hall was glittering with crystal chandeliers, soft golden light pooling over white tablecloths and gleaming silverware. The hum of polite conversation floated through the air like a pleasant melody. But beneath it all was tension, one I didn't realize until my father's words cleaved through the warmth like a sharp knife. I still remember the scent of the rose centerpiece, heavy and sweet, mingling with the faint trace of lemon from the polished floors. My heart was pounding in a way I had never felt before. That public shaming, calling me a beggar, was the last thing I ever expected to hear from the man who had always been the head of our family. The man I had spent years quietly supporting with my own money. Before that night, I was the family's invisible backbone. Nobody knew I was footing bills for their luxuries, the beachfront condo, Amanda's lavish honeymoon, the banquet itself, all from my business accounts. They thought it was their wealth, their fortune. But I was the one making the sacrifices, the one running the silent ledger behind the scenes. But that evening changed everything. I woke up that morning with a strange kind of nervous excitement. The Mitchell family was gathering for the annual summer banquet, an event that was as much about keeping up appearances as it was about celebration. The house smelled of freshly brewed coffee, and the faint aroma of baked cinnamon rolls wafted from the kitchen where Mom was bustling around in her favorite floral apron. "Lauren, honey, can you help me set the table?" she asked, her voice warm but a little rushed. I smiled and nodded, smoothing out the creases in the linen napkins as I arranged the silverware. The house was buzzing with activity. Amanda was applying lipstick in the mirror, casting quick glances at herself, while Dad was in the study, pacing with that old scowl that softened only when he was deep in his business calls. We all knew the banquet was more than just a family gathering. It was a subtle power play, a way for my parents to show off what they had, or rather, what they wanted everyone to believe they had. And I had long been the one keeping that illusion alive. Amanda, my younger sister, was the golden child, the family's darling. She laughed easily and flirted with the waiters, confident and carefree. What she didn't know was that her dreamy honeymoon in Bali was paid by me, from a fund I kept hidden in the corner of my business accounts. "Lauren, you should come with us next time," Amanda said, flashing me a dazzling smile. "It'll be fun." I forced a chuckle, not wanting to spoil her excitement. She was young, naive to the silent burdens I carried for all of us. Dad came into the room just then, his voice booming and full of authority. "Everything set, ladies? Remember, this banquet is important. People are watching." The unspoken message was clear. Keep the family looking perfect. As the evening began, the room filled with laughter and clinking glasses. The catered food was a symphony of flavors, garlic in the roasted chicken, the subtle smokiness of grilled vegetables, and the tang of freshly squeezed lemon in the salad dressing. I sat quietly, watching my family bask in the glow of their success, feeling the weight of my hidden generosity growing heavier with every toast. Then came the moment no one saw coming. Dad stood up to give his usual speech words polished to perfection, praising family unity and success. But then his gaze locked on me, sharp and cold. "And yet," he said, voice steady but dripping with disdain, "some among us forget where the real money comes from. Some choose to live off others, like a beggar at the family's table." The room fell silent. The air seemed to freeze. I felt every head turned toward me, eyes wide with shock. I tried to speak, to defend myself, but the words caught in my throat. I remember the taste of my dry mouth, the sudden heat rushing to my cheeks, and the cold grip of betrayal twisting inside me. My mother looked away, her face tight with pain. Amanda's smile vanished, replaced by stunned disbelief. That moment was a fracture, a breaking point. I realized then that my silent sacrifices had never been appreciated, that I was no longer the quiet supporter but the scapegoat. When the banquet ended, I didn't wait for apologies or explanations. I left, the soft click of my heels echoing down the marble stairs, every step a quiet declaration that things would never be the same. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, the scent of jasmine from the window box mingled with the faint city noise, I made a decision. I was done being my family's secret financier, the invisible bank they thought they could use and discard. First, I called Naomi, my lawyer, a calm and unflappable woman who had helped me through previous business struggles. I told her everything, the payments, the hidden funds, the banquet, and the shame. "We need to look deeper," she said quietly. "If your family's been claiming your assets as their own, there's a paper trail, and it's time they faced it." I also reached out to Mr. Davies, my parents' accountant, someone I had always trusted, but now looked at with new eyes. Together, Naomi, Mr. Davies, and I began to untangle years of financial deception hidden beneath layers of family loyalty and silent resentment. I want to pause here and let you feel the weight of that first night. The shock, the silence, the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Sometimes, the people closest to us hurt us the most, not with violence or anger, but with betrayal wrapped in familiar voices. The next few days after the banquet felt like walking through fog. I moved through my apartment like a ghost, the usual hum of life muted by the ache of betrayal. My phone buzzed constantly, texts and calls from family members pretending everything was normal, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. The sound of the ringing only reminded me how hollow the connections had become. I sat at my kitchen table, the polished oak surface cool beneath my fingertips, staring at the stack of bank statements and spreadsheets Naomi had emailed me. Numbers, figures, payments stretching back years. But the reality they revealed was something much darker. Every direct deposit, every transfer to a condo maintenance account, every family expense was money from my businesses. Money I had earned through long hours, endless sacrifice. Money that had been quietly diverted without my permission to fund my parents' lavish lifestyle and Amanda's extravagant honeymoon. The first time I confronted Dad about it, his reaction was a cold wall of denial. "Lauren, you don't understand how family finances work," he said, voice heavy with condescension during a strained phone call. "We contribute in our own ways." "Dad, this isn't about contributions," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. "This is theft. You and Mom have been claiming my assets as your own. Amanda's honeymoon, the condo, the banquet, it's all on my dime." There was silence on the other end, then a sigh. "You're being dramatic." But I wasn't. I was done hiding the truth. My relationship with Amanda was the hardest to face. Growing up, we were inseparable best friends who shared secrets and dreams. But lately, she'd slipped into a careless bubble of entitlement, oblivious to the quiet burdens I bore for the family. One afternoon, I found her scrolling through photos from her honeymoon, the sunlit beaches of Bali glowing on her phone screen. She laughed softly, completely unaware of the storm brewing behind my calm exterior. "I wish you could have come," she said, glancing up with a half-smile. "I wish I hadn't paid for it," I thought bitterly, but instead I forced a smile. Maybe next time. That was the last time I spoke to her without the weight of truth pressing between us. With Naomi's help, I began to build a case. We sifted through years of financial records, uncovering hidden transfers and misrepresented expenses. It was painstaking work, every detail mattered. We hired forensic accountants to trace the flow of funds, and slowly, the picture became clear. The truth was undeniable. My parents and Amanda had been living on money that wasn't theirs, all while acting like I was the charity case. The next step was the hardest, confronting them with evidence and preparing for a legal battle that would shatter what was left of our family. One evening, I sat across from Mr. Davies in a small, cluttered office at the accountant's firm. The smell of old paper and coffee lingered in the air as he spread out files on the desk. "I've never seen anything like this," he said, his voice low with disbelief. "It's clear they've been misreporting income and assets, claiming your business earnings as family wealth." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Why didn't you tell me?" He looked away, ashamed. I wanted to believe it wasn't true. It was a moment of painful honesty. Even the adults I trusted had been caught in the web of denial. With the legal papers drafted and Naomi by my side, I confronted my parents in the cold silence of their living room. The walls smelled faintly of vanilla and aged wood, a stark contrast to the tension crackling between us. "I'm cutting off all payments," I said firmly. "The condo, the banquet, Amanda's honeymoon fund, everything." My mother's eyes filled with tears, but my father's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake, Lauren," he said, voice like steel. "Family doesn't do this to each other. Family doesn't call their own daughter a beggar," I replied quietly, the pain soft but resolute. The battle lines were drawn. Days turned into weeks. Rumors began to spread quietly among family friends in the community. The banquet had been the catalyst, but the fallout was just beginning. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for respect, for truth, for the right to stand on my own without shame. Throughout the ordeal, Naomi was my rock, calm, strategic, and unwavering. "Justice isn't about revenge," she reminded me often. "It's about accountability." And accountability was exactly what I intended to demand. At one point, Amanda reached out, her voice shaky. "Lauren, can we talk? I don't want to lose you." I hesitated. I wanted to believe in the sister I once knew, but the pain was still fresh, and the wounds ran deep. "Not yet," I said finally. "Maybe someday. For now, I needed space to heal and to reclaim the life I'd given away so quietly." As the legal battle progressed, the truth became public. The community whispered. But there was no cruelty in my revelation, only a quiet demand for fairness. In the end, my parents faced consequences. They had to repay what they'd taken, and the condo was sold. The money from the sale didn't go back to them. It was donated to a foundation I started for women in need. That foundation became my sanctuary, a place where I turned pain into purpose. Sometimes, when I visit the foundation, I smell the faint scent of fresh paint and new books. I hear the soft laughter of women discovering their strength, and it reminds me why I fought so hard. The betrayal still stings, but it no longer defines me. The morning after the banquet, I woke up to a silence, so thick it felt suffocating. No calls, no messages, just the quiet hum of the city outside my window. The faint smell of coffee from the cafe downstairs barely reached me as I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to make sense of everything. The word beggar echoed in my mind, each repetition like a tiny crack in my soul. How could my own father, the man who raised me, the man I respected and loved, say something so cruel in public? And why had I been the one carrying the financial weight of this family all along? I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling the cool morning air against my skin. I realized then that the family I thought I knew was built on a fragile foundation of secrets and lies, a house of cards waiting to collapse. Days blurred together as I moved through the motions. I went to work, managed my business, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept replaying that night, over and over, analyzing every word, every look, every breath. I thought about Mom, sitting quietly beside Dad during his outburst, her face a mask of hurt she wouldn't allow herself to fully show. I thought about Amanda, laughing so freely just hours before, completely unaware of the storm that would follow. The house felt emptier than ever, even though I'd left it behind. I wasn't sure if I wanted to face them again or pretend nothing had happened. That's when Naomi called. Her voice was steady and reassuring on the other end of the line. Lauren, I've started looking into the accounts. There's definitely something off. We need to meet with Mr. Davies. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Thank you, Naomi. I don't know what I'd do without you. Naomi was more than my lawyer. She was the calm in the chaos, the voice of reason when everything felt like it was falling apart. Meeting with Mr. Davies was like peeling back layers of a complicated painting. The man's office was cluttered with papers and ledgers, the air thick with the smell of aged books and stale coffee. He looked up as I entered, his eyes tired but kind. Lauren, what you're dealing with isn't easy. It's not just about money, it's about trust and betrayal. He pushed a stack of documents across the desk toward me. These records show a clear pattern of misappropriation. Your family has been using your business accounts to fund their personal expenses, disguising it as shared assets. I stared at the papers, the reality sinking in deeper with every line. The hardest part was confronting Dad. I wasn't sure if I wanted an apology or an explanation, but I knew I had to speak my truth. One afternoon, I found myself sitting across from him in the living room, the faded floral curtains casting soft shadows over the worn carpet. Dad, I began, voice trembling slightly. I've discovered the truth. The condo, the banquet, Amanda's honeymoon, they've all been paid for with my money. He looked away, jaw tight. You don't understand family finances, Lauren, he said quietly. We all contribute in different ways. No, I replied firmly. You've been taking what's mine and pretending it's yours. And that banquet, calling me a beggar, was the final straw. That moment marked the end of my silent sacrifices. I cut off all payments immediately, the condo fees, the banquet costs, Amanda's honeymoon fund. I wasn't going to be the family's secret ATM anymore. I worked with Naomi to prepare for the legal battle ahead, gathering every piece of evidence we could find. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about standing up for myself, demanding respect, and refusing to be hidden behind the veil of family loyalty. The news spread quickly. Friends, neighbors, even distant relatives whispered behind closed doors. Some sympathized, others were shocked. Amanda was hurt and confused. When she reached out, her voice cracked with emotion. Lauren, please. I don't want to lose you. I don't know if I'm ready yet, I said softly. Maybe someday. The condo was eventually sold, and I used the proceeds to start a foundation for women in need, a place where I could channel my pain into something meaningful. Visiting the foundation, hearing the stories of women reclaiming their lives, I felt a quiet peace settle within me. The legal battle felt like wading through a thick, relentless fog. Every day brought new challenges, not just in court, but in the quiet moments where the weight of what had happened settled deeper into my bones. Sitting in Naomi's office one rainy afternoon, I watched raindrops race down the window pane, each one a tiny messenger of the storm I was enduring. Naomi's calm voice cut through the gray silence. Lauren, this isn't just a financial case. It's about reclaiming your dignity. Your family has taken advantage of your generosity for too long. I nodded, gripping the edge of the chair as the memories surfaced. The banquet, my father's harsh words, the endless nights balancing ledgers to keep the facade intact. Court hearings were tense affairs. My parents, once so authoritative and proud, now seemed small and defensive. Their lawyer tried to paint me as the ungrateful daughter, the troublemaker disrupting family harmony, but I refused to be silenced. I gave everything to this family, I told the judge, voice steady despite the tremor in my heart. And when I was betrayed, I had no choice but to demand accountability. Amanda sat silently in the courtroom, her eyes filled with a mixture of shame and sorrow. I could see the pain in her, and it almost made me falter, but I reminded myself why I was fighting. Behind closed doors, the family fracture grew deeper. My parents avoided me, and Amanda stopped returning my calls. The house I once called home felt like a distant memory, wrapped in shadows and silence. But I found strength in unexpected places. Mr. Davies, the family accountant, became an unlikely ally. He confessed how he had turned a blind eye for years, caught between loyalty and truth. "I'm sorry, Lauren," he said quietly during one meeting. "I should have spoken up sooner." His honesty gave me hope that justice was more than just legal jargon. It was about facing hard truths. Eventually, the court ruled in my favor. The financial misappropriations were undeniable. My parents were ordered to repay what they owed, and the family condo was sold. But instead of taking the money back for myself, I made a choice. I founded a nonprofit dedicated to supporting women who, like me, had been invisible pillars in their families, sacrificing quietly, often unrecognized. Walking through the halls of the foundation's new building, freshly painted and filled with light, I felt a quiet peace I hadn't known in years. The scent of new books, the sound of women's laughter, and the energy of purpose filled the space. This was my healing. The days after the court's decision were oddly quiet. The storm had passed, but the air still felt charged with the echoes of what had been. I found myself standing in the empty condo one last time before handing over the keys. The faint smell of salt and sea breeze drifted through the open windows, mingling with the lingering scent of polished wood and the faint trace of lavender from my mother's diffuser. It was strange to think this place, once a symbol of family luxury and unity, was now just bricks and memories. I ran my hand along the windowsill, feeling the cool glass beneath my fingers, and made a silent promise to myself that this would be the end of the chapter filled with silence and sacrifice. Selling the condo wasn't just about the money, it was about reclaiming my power and transforming pain into purpose. With the funds, I established the Foundation for Women in Need. It wasn't just a charity. It was a sanctuary for those who had carried heavy burdens in silence, who had been overlooked or undervalued. On opening day, the air was filled with anticipation and hope. The soft murmur of conversation, the rustle of papers, and the bright, expectant eyes of women gathered to find their voices. I stood at the front, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and pride. "I know what it's like to be invisible," I told the crowd, voice steady but filled with emotion. "To be the one who supports everyone else, while your own needs are pushed aside. But this foundation is for us, for all of us who are ready to step into the light and reclaim our stories." Tears welled in my eyes as hands reached out, gripping mine in silent solidarity. It was the beginning of healing, not just for me, but for so many women who had been quietly carrying their own weight. In the weeks that followed, I found a new rhythm. My mornings began with the soft scent of coffee brewing and the gentle warmth of sunlight filtering through the windows of my apartment. I no longer felt the crushing weight of family secrets pressing down on me. Instead, I carried the quiet strength of knowing I had taken control of my life. Sometimes, I think about my parents and Amanda. The betrayal still stings, but I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about freeing yourself. I'm not sure if we will ever truly reconnect, and maybe that's okay. What matters now is the peace I've found on my own terms. The news about the family dispute spread quietly at first. Whispered conversations at church, the subtle sideways glances from neighbors, the polite inquiries from distant relatives. But the truth was out, and there was no hiding anymore. I wasn't interested in gossip or drama. What I wanted was justice, accountability, and a chance to rebuild without the shadows of lies hanging over me. The community's reaction was a mix of shock and sympathy. Some people called, offering support. Others kept their distance, uncomfortable with the idea of family conflict laid bare. One afternoon, I received a call from Mrs. Jenkins, my childhood neighbor. "I'm so sorry you had to go through this, Lauren," she said softly. "It's hard to see a family fall apart." Her words touched me, a reminder that even in brokenness, there is compassion. My parents, meanwhile, faced consequences beyond the courtroom. Friends who once admired them now questioned their integrity. Invitations to social events stopped coming. Their carefully crafted image began to unravel. I didn't revel in their downfall. I only wanted them to understand the cost of betrayal. Amanda and I remained estranged. I often thought about the little sister I once knew, the girl who trusted me, who laughed without worry. But wounds run deep, and sometimes love means stepping back to let healing happen on its own time. Through it all, I leaned on Naomi and Mr. Davies. Their support was unwavering, a reminder that family isn't always defined by blood. Together, We worked not only to untangle the financial mess, but to restore my sense of self-worth and dignity. The foundation became a beacon in the community, a place where women found strength, healing, and solidarity. Its success wasn't just measured in numbers, but in the quiet transformations I witnessed daily. Healing didn't come all at once. It came in small moments the first time I walked into my office without feeling the weight of shame. The quiet evenings when I could breathe without the knot in my chest. The smile of a woman at the foundation who told me, "You gave me hope." I learned that peace isn't about forgetting the past, but about embracing the future on your own terms. I began to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I reconnected with old friends, took long walks in the park where the scent of pine and earth reminded me of simpler times, and found joy in the little things: a perfect cup of coffee, the warmth of sunlight on my face, the sound of rain tapping on the window. The foundation grew, and with it, my sense of purpose. One afternoon, as I sat at my desk, surrounded by letters from women sharing their stories, I felt a quiet strength settle over me. The betrayal, the legal battles, the heartbreak that had all led me here, not to bitterness or regret, but to a place of empowerment, forgiveness. I realized, wasn't about excusing the past, but about freeing myself from its hold. I didn't know if I would ever fully reconcile with my family, but I was no longer defined by their actions. I was my own person, standing tall and whole. As I look back, I see a journey marked by pain, yes, but also by growth, resilience, and hope. I want other women to know they don't have to carry their burdens alone. There is strength in speaking your truth, in demanding respect, and in choosing your own path. Thank you for listening to my story. Sometimes, the people we love most are the ones who hurt us in ways we never expect. Family can be a source of strength, but also a source of deep, quiet pain. I learned the hard way that love doesn't mean silence in the face of betrayal. It took losing everything I thought I had to find who I truly was beneath it all. My journey wasn't easy. It was filled with heartbreak and difficult choices, but it led me to a place of peace and purpose. I want to ask you, have you ever felt like you were carrying a weight no one else saw? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when the people closest to you didn't understand? It's okay to protect your own heart. It's okay to demand respect. And sometimes, it's okay to walk away to find your own peace. If my story spoke to you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences matter, and your voice deserves to be heard. And if you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and support the channel. Remember, no matter how dark the night, there is always a dawn waiting to break. You are not alone.